But let's first talk about China's provocation on Independence Day of India. A scuffle that led to stone pelting by Chinese troops along the northern bank of the Pengongso Lake in Ladakh. Remember, this lake, one-third of it is in India, two-thirds of the lake is in China. But Chinese troops transgressed into Indian territory up to the finger 4-point area. Both sides, of course, pulled back in about half an hour. But remember, the Doklam standoff has now been on for 60 days, and then there's another violation by China. Is this now an attempt by China to escalate tension along multiple sides all along the line of actual control? There is currently a border management meeting underway to ensure the situation doesn't flare up.
The Chinese army tries to intrude Ladakh. Stone pelting by Chinese forces. And then the Indian troops foil Chinese attempt. The dragon, who is rattled amid the Doklam standoff, has now targeted the Ladakh border. On Tuesday morning, the PLA troops tried to intrude into the north bank of Pangong Lake. The Chinese troops were successful in entering the Finger 4 area, but were interrupted by the Indian forces and were sent back. Baffled by the action of the Indian side, Chinese soldiers resorted to stone pelting. The heated exchange between the two sides caused minor injuries to soldiers on both the sides. It was believed that the Chinese patrols lost their way due to bad weather conditions. But after the stone pelting incident, it is seen as a clear intrusion bid by China. A situation on the Indo-China border is so tense that for the first time in 2 decades, the Chinese army did not greet the Indian army post at Trishul.
This year, first time in a decade, there is not visitors from the Chinese PLA who had greeted the Indian counterparts in the Trishul border on the day of Independence Day. That clearly indicates how the tension between India and China is mounting.
Earlier in the week, India Today had also reported about the Chinese PLA constructing a bridge near the LAC in Ladakh. And now, with the increased tensions between India and China due to Doklam, the whole of LAC remains volatile, including the Pangong Lake area. With Ashraf Vani in Leh and Geeta Mohan in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
India Today, Shri Ranjan Sen now joins me for the latest developments along the line of actual control. Also with me is Lieutenant General Atta Hasnain. He's commanded a corps in Kashmir, joins us on the broadcast. Also with us is Brahma Chellaney, and Professor Brahma Chellaney follows China very closely, reads the dragon's mind. But I want to come to you first, Shruti, and I want to understand from you what's happening in this border management meet. Issues and incidents is what they wanted to ensure do not flare up. So what came of it?
Well, I mean, it's a clear indication, Gaurav, that both sides after yesterday's incident, and mind you, you have to underline that while scuffles are very normal, natural along the line of control, actual control between India and China, because much of it is disputed, scuffles are accepted, scuffles are seen, they are normal. Stone pelting, no. This is kind of unprecedented in a way. Although there are incidents, but there are very rare incidents where the stones have been pelted. It's a clear violation of the 2013 Border Defense Agreement. That being the background, what it means is that it is a very serious incident, indication of the tension that is there. What has happened in the Border Defense Agreement or the flag meeting that we see at the BPM huts today is that both sides have said that we need to strengthen the mechanisms to maintain peace and tranquility along the border, which is very clearly saying that both India and China are showing the maturity which says that, well, Doklam is happening, let's not link everything up to Doklam, let not Doklam spill over to the other areas, let us hold on.
Okay.
Let us hold.
Or is China trying to lull India into perhaps a false sense of calm? Is that a correct assessment? Because the Narendra Modi government is watching these developments very closely. Now, India's reacted with a very calm demeanor, very hostile statements made by the Chinese press, by their army, by their government, but a very calm and a very mature response followed India, came from India's side. So how is the government assessing it? Let's find out.
Chinese troops came, they saw, and they flung stones. The disturbing incident reported first by India today, raising temperatures at India's high-altitude border with China and sending out a wave of shock and revulsion. As the country fights to understand China's low blow, the almost juvenile attempt to escalate sentiments on a disputed but otherwise peaceful border area. India today has accessed the first internal assessment conducted overnight by government intelligence agencies. A 5-point interpretation that lays down the contours of how India moves forward. First, intelligence agencies are clear that the use of stones was unprecedented and unusual, and the incident appears to be a deliberate attempt to provoke and heighten tension without use of lethal weapons. Second, troops coming face to face in Pangong Tso area not at all unusual and happens often due to non-delineation of border both on land and on lake surface. But use of force appears to be part of considered design. Third, agencies feel India cannot ignore a possible connection with what's happening in Doklam and that the Ladakh stone pelting by Chinese troops could be part of larger effort to fulfill veiled threat by the Chinese government to heighten tensions on other fronts along LAC. Fourth, the nature of incident threatens current protocol of peaceful resolution when troops come face to face at border. And finally, the incident throws a glaring question over how such an incident can be reasonably discussed at border patrol meetings.
China और पाकिस्तान की मिलके एक साजिश के तहत ये काम हो रहा है। एक तरफ से पाकिस्तान अपनी सेना पे टेंशन बढ़ाता है तो दूसरी तरफ चाइनीज भी अब आजकल इस तरह की गतिविधियां कर रहे हैं।
It will not be the last time. China sees and keeps probing and checks up the reaction of the Indian government and the political will of the Indian government and of course the military preparedness of the Indian troops and Indian armed forces.
There's no sidestepping the fact that the Ladakh incident, while it lasted only 30 minutes, has still sent ripples of shock through a system that's already tense from the Doklam standoff. And while a flag meeting between the two sides has resulted in an agreement to calm tensions following the Ladakh incident, there remains shock over how deliberate China's attempt apparently was to raise temperatures. With Shiv Arur in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
General Hasnain, how do you read China pelting stones at Indian forces in this area, in the Finger Four area?
Gaurav, firstly, I would like to inform you that I have commanded my battalion right there in Chushul, responsible for the area of the Pangong Tso. So I'm fully aware of what all happens there. Secondly, I could trivialize this whole incident and just say that this is a one-off kind of a thing and unprecedented, the use of stones on patrols. But I think I have to take it seriously from the angle that the men involved are not carrying stones. Stones may just be there. They are all carrying weapons. They're carrying medium machine guns and rocket launchers and automatic grenade launchers. Now when this kind of a thing happens, you need a single trigger to upset the entire balance. May I remind you about what happened at Nathula in 1967?
Yes.
The standoff also was over a period of time. And it was only when we were laying the wire obstacle to demarcate the boundary that finally, out of the blue suddenly, fire was opened on our troops and we had huge casualties.
Yes.
Now, I don't think the Chinese are looking at history. I don't think they're treating this seriously enough. And they're not looking at the very serious and mature way in which our government is handling this. Yesterday, the Prime Minister, in his speech on Independence Day, did not even make a mention of the line of actual control or anything on the Doklam or anything on China at all. He left it to the Foreign Minister and a very mature speech in Parliament which enunciated what the policy of the government of India is, which is primarily the diplomatic route. I think this is being childish, and China needs to be much more mature in its handling. Although, let me tell you also, at the end, that after Doklam in the last 2 weeks, I have been expecting that this will spread to some kind of an incident in Ladakh.
And this is why it's a cause for concern. You're spot on, General. Stay with me. You're spot on. This may appear childish, but is far more sinister than being just childish or juvenile, that Chinese troops are behaving, in this manner. Brahma Chellaney, you study China very closely. Now, is this very well choreographed? First, Doklam, they were surprised by India's response. Now it's 2 months that the Doklam standoff is on because China is actually blowing hot, blowing cold. So they celebrate Independence Day with us, they exchange sweets with us, and then they pelt stones in the Finger Four area, Brahma Chellaney.
There's a method to what China is doing. China is systematically trying to mount greater pressure on India from different flanks. Today's Global Times has an article which says that Doklam marks a defining moment for China, that henceforth the two countries are going to be heading towards long-term strategic confrontation. So the Chinese look at Doklam as a defining moment because India has challenged China's preeminence in Asia. It has also dared Xi Jinping, the strongman. So China is looking for a way to punish India, but they don't know how to punish India. They are in a dilemma. Right now they do not have the tactical surprise element. They do not have the ability to carry out a blitzkrieg against India because the Indian army is on alert. So they are in a fix, and yet they are searching for a way to punish India. So we should not discount the Chinese threat. We have to be vigilant and we have to be ready.
Okay. General Hasnain, you spoke of 67 very specifically. So there was a standoff situation. Chinese soldiers opened fire on India, and for the next 3 days, there were artillery exchanges between India and China. We lost 80 troops. They lost, by their own account, close to 350 troops. But does it appear that they haven't learned their lesson either from Sikkim or from Sundarongchu in 86, 87? Or is it that they will continue to increase pressure points, mount this psyops and expect India to make a mistake and then do something else?
Gaurav, the Chinese are past masters in the study of history. They know their tactics very well. They are strategists. To think that there is not a method in the madness of what is going on would be actually trivializing the whole situation. I do believe that everything that they're doing is with an intent, and as Mr. Brahma Chellaney very correctly assessed himself, actually they've run out of options. And they're finding it difficult actually now to pressurize India. I think the window which they are looking for is primarily in the next 6 to 8 weeks, in which we have always been assessing from a political angle that primarily it is the upcoming 19th Congress of the Chinese Communist Party.
Yes.
Now, till then, they cannot possibly stand down, they cannot dilute their stance, because a mutual withdrawal from Doklam itself is going to be seen as a victory for India. One of the strange strategic situations which comes once in a while. So till then, they are trying to make some efforts of keeping the temperatures high, threatening India. The same will be utilized through psychological warfare in the newspapers and Global Times, but I don't think they're going to go beyond that for the moment.
Okay. So it's a law of diminishing returns, isn't it? Because for 2 months, Professor Chellaney, day in and day out, we've had Global Times spewing venom, and perhaps now in this country, whatever the Chinese media writes is being treated with the contempt it deserves.
You're right, and we should treat their almost daily threats with the contempt such threats deserve. But we can't ignore the fact that just in this month, there has been a barrage of warnings by the Chinese defense and foreign ministries, by Xinhua News Agency, by the People's Daily, by the People's Army Liberation Daily, etc.
Yes.
The fact that such an extraordinary barrage of threats and warnings against India has come
Yes.
is something that India cannot discount.
Okay.
And let me say one thing.
Yes.
The only way we can deter China from launching a military attack on India is if we can show that we are ready not only to meet their aggression, but to defeat it. We are ready to inflict heavy reverses on any invading force.
Oh,
only
absolutely.
if we can demonstrate.
Brahma Chellaney, stay with me for a moment. There's breaking news coming in. It's a massive diplomatic victory for India. Hizbul Mujahideen has been designated as a global terrorist organization by the United States State Department. Remember, Syed Salahuddin has already been declared a global terrorist. Now the department has designated the organization Hizbul Mujahideen as a foreign terrorist organization. So what does this mean? It means that all properties and interests of Hizbul Mujahideen are now subject to US jurisdiction, and they will be blocked. Any interests of the Hizbul Mujahideen in US territory cannot be used for terror activities. Now, this is a terrorist organization, and there you see its boss on your television screen. It's been operating in the Kashmir Valley since 1989. It's one of the largest and the oldest terrorist organizations, which is based in Pakistan and Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Hizbul Mujahideen has also, its boss Syed Salahuddin has been designated as a global terrorist by the US State Department. And I quickly want to cut across to India today. Shiv Arur. Shiv, it's a shot in the arm for India's war on terror. While Pakistan may continue to hide a global terrorist and shelter a global terrorist organization, they stand exposed globally, Shiv.
This is a very substantive follow-up, Gaurav, to the action taken by the US State Department and its other agencies when Prime Minister Modi visited Washington at the end of June earlier this year. Now, at that time, the focus of the action was the chief of the Hizbul Mujahideen, Syed Salahuddin, who, as you know, shuttles between Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, Pakistan and Kashmir itself. But what we have now is substantive action taken on the transactional freedom of the Hizbul Mujahideen and its affiliates. And this is money transactions and property transactions, not just based in the area and in the region, but also perhaps connected with the United States. Okay. As you know, the financial and revenue intelligence agencies in the United States have very long arms, and they've got the best possible financial intelligence as far as their global networks are concerned. The CIA is also involved as far as terror financing, terror funding and transactions are concerned. This is a symbol and an affirmation that they've sunk their teeth into the Hizbul Mujahideen.
What
India's
will
diplomatic
this lead
lobby
to?
has obviously worked,
yes.
And President Trump's assurance, well, it wasn't really in a statement, but his assurance that the Hizbul Mujahideen, the Jamaat Dawa and other such terror groups would be acted against is certainly, paying off, and it obviously is happening on the ground.
Oh,
with this State Department action.
absolutely, Shiv. Stay with me. General Hasnain, you've commanded a corps in the Kashmir Valley. General Hasnain, how do you view this? So just today we've had a great story about a Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorist being killed in an encounter in Pulwama. That's where 133 terrorists since January till date have been killed in the valley. And now the US, as Shiv says, sinking its teeth into this Pakistan-based terrorist organization.
I'm happy that I'm on the program while the breaking news was coming in. And sequentially, whatever you have explained to the listeners and to your viewers is absolutely correct. On the kinetic side, almost 132, 133 terrorists killed till this time, which is much more than the figure last year, shows that the Jammu and Kashmir police, the army, the CRPF have all got their act together despite all the problems of interference by the flash mobs at the various encounter sites. Secondly, we've been able to kill a large number of terrorist leaders so far. Thirdly, the NIA successfully pursuing the complete investigations against the Hurriyat and other financial networks. And now this breaking news which you have just brought in, the aspect of the Hizbul Mujahideen as an organization being declared a terrorist organization, a foreign terrorist organization. Psychologically, this is going to be a great hit, because you have to remember that all the time even Pakistan continues to maintain that an organization like the Hizbul Mujahideen is essentially a group of freedom fighters.
It clearly isn't. Yes, it clearly isn't. And Shudi, the general says psychologically it's a shot in the arm. In more ways than one, it gives India more power to go out, hit out at terrorists and also target their support base in Pakistan.
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's not only a shot in the arm. I mean, this is what we have been saying all along, that the Hizbul Mujahideen is one of the most, active terror organizations there. And mind you, if you look at Kashmir today, and the general has served as a general officer commanding of the 15 Corps, looking at this entire area, he would know the number of recruitments that are happening. Much of the recruitment that we are seeing today is from the local youth. And who is recruiting? It is the Hizbul Mujahideen that is recruiting. By putting this entire group under the terror watch list or as a terror organization, it will be difficult to, move around the funds. And we all know when you dry out the funds for any terror organization, its training suffers. Its recruitment will suffer. So it is going to be a big blow. And we also know that on the ground, there is a continuous, the armed forces are in an operational mode.
Absolutely. It's a big shot in the arm for security forces. Jellata Hasnain, Brahma Chellaney, Shivarur and Sudhir Ranjan Sen, many thanks for joining me. At this point of time, there is a multi-pronged strategy that is on, not just to kill terrorists, but also squeeze its support base and funds, without which these terrorists cannot function and stone pelters cannot be funded to pelt stones. We'll track that story very closely. That is all I have time for on India First this evening. Many thanks for watching.